make this country unsuccessful. When you look at what's happening at our border, Joe, when you have people coming in that, when other countries are allowed to empty their prisons into our country with murderers, we had 13,099 murderers dropped in our country over the last 3 years.
And 15,000 rapists convicted.
Rapists,
Yeah.
drug dealers, drug lords.
And that's just the ones that have been accounted for.
Correct. People from mental institutions.
What do you think the strategy is?
Hundreds of thousands of major criminals, tougher and worse than anybody we have.
We're seeing the consequences of it in San Antonio. They've taken over apartment buildings. In rural Colorado, they've taken over apartment buildings. These Venezuelan gangs.
Beginning.
What do you think the strategy is? You know, one of the things they've said is that you stopped a bill being passed. But didn't that bill also include amnesty for the people that are already here?
Yeah, this is years after the fact. The damage was already done.
But what was the bill?
Well, the bill
what was the problem?
It allowed 2 million people in. They were going to get amnesty. It was a horrible bill. It didn't protect us at all.
But we should just tell people what the strategy is. So one of the things that's been their strategy. One of the things that's been very clear is that they've moved a large percentage of these migrants that are coming across the border illegally. They've moved them to swing states. Like, this is what's going on with Springfield, Ohio, right?
They're in swing states. Well, that's not a swing state. I'm going to win Ohio by a lot. So that's not a swing. It's called Springfield, Ohio, to be exact. And Springfield, Ohio is this very nice community of 52,000 people that just had 32,000 migrants that don't speak the language dropped into their community. You can't get into a hospital. You can't get into a school. It's gone from a beautiful little place to a horror show. And the mayor is a nice guy. And the mayor says, we're looking for interpreters. I said, no, you've got to remove them and bring them back to their country. Mostly Haitians in this case. But they speak no language. They speak no
English, man.
In fact, even the language they do speak, they can't get interpreters, they can't do anything. And the mayor's trying to be politically correct. They're all trying to be. In Aurora, Colorado, you have the worst, probably the worst gang. MS-13 might even be, those two are the worst gangs. These are Venezuela new speakers. We're looking for interpreters. I said, no, you've got to remove them and bring them back to their country. Mostly Haitians in this case. But they speak no language. They speak no
English, man.
In fact, even the language they do speak, they can't get interpreters, they can't do anything. And the mayor's trying to be politically correct. They're all trying to be. In Aurora, Colorado, you have the worst, probably the worst gang. MS-13 might even be, those two are the worst gangs. These are Venezuela gangs. They have taken over apartment complexes, and they're going to want to take over the whole thing. And you have a weak governor, pathetic governor, who's a radical left Democrat. He doesn't know what the hell to do. But you have it in many other communities, but they don't like to talk about it because it's bad for the community to talk about it. These people have been let in here by this imbecile. And I mean it, she's a low IQ person. Low IQ.
Right, but it's obviously not just her. There's a strategy that's involved in letting these people in.
She was in charge of the border.
Well, she's in charge of the border, but they utilize that app. The app that used to be used. It used to be used, I think, essentially, wasn't it for shipping? Wasn't it when people were in this country?
It was used for shipping, and now it's used to deal with the cartels. The cartel, heads of the cartel, who rich people, by the way, these are loaded. These people have so much money. They would call up, think of this, they call up the app, and the app tells them where they should take their load of illegal migrants from the Congo. We have a lot from the Congo, prisons in the Congo. I made a little bit of a sarcastic joke. A man named Dana White, who you love, who I love. I assume you love.
Love that dude.
I think he's in a class by him.
He's probably the reason why you're here.
I don't know, maybe.
He's one of the big ones.
He is the greatest guy.
I love, as a nation, overall, if you just put it out there that, hey, as a nation, we're going to make a concerted effort to get people healthier. Just put it out there, and people start making better choices.
Well, when you look at that chart,
it's crazy.
They just gave me that chart because they said you may want to discuss this topic, which I know is a big topic for you. And when I looked at that chart and I looked at how unhealthy we are as a nation, that's a pretty big thing.
How are you so healthy? Is it golf?
No, it's genetics, I believe. You know, I'm a big
Genetics
believer.
is a big factor.
I really am. I mean, my father
Unfortunately, it is a big factor for health. Some people are just way more robust. But you do play golf a lot, and that is exercise.
Both of my parents. For me, it's good.
Fresh air.
It really is. It's fresh air. You're outside. Even mentally, you're focused on that 3-footer for a couple of hours. You're not. And I go quick. I play fast, real fast, and I'm in, I'm out. But you know, it gives me. I was never one that could like run on a treadmill. And I can do it. You know, when passing a physical, they asked me to run on a treadmill, and then they make it steeper and steeper and steeper. And the doctor said it was at Walter Reed. They said, it's unbelievable. I could have gone, I'm telling you, I felt I could have gone all day. But I said, Doc, I can do this all day long. I have no problem. But it's boring to me. Do you understand?
Right.
It's just boring.
Golf's exciting.
But I did it for so long. They couldn't believe it that I did it. And I never did, you know, I don't do it. I don't go, you know, I have friends that run into stuff all day long, but I had no problem doing it. But it's really boring. So with golf or something, you know, or tennis or whatever.
Right.
But golf, as you get older, there's something really good about it. And you have competition with your friends.
Competition, concentration, focus.
And it's a great handicap sport.
And it's also a thing, I think, that's it cleans your mind, because when you're looking at a shot, that's all you can think of when you're executing.
It gives you a couple of hours. You know, it's interesting, like with tennis, if you're much better than somebody, you can't really play with somebody. You know, it doesn't work. You can give them sort of the equivalent of strokes, right? But it's not this. With golf, you can play with a lousy guy and give him a stroke a hole or 2 strokes a hole or something. You know, it's a good handicapping sport.
Right.
But it gives me a little exercise. But I haven't played in a long time. I won 32 strokes.
Didn't you play right after you got shot?
No. What I did is I played with Bryson DeChambeau. Do you know Bryson?
Yes.
The pro.
Uh-huh.
He's a great player. And we played, it was a certain thing that we played, I guess called breaking 50 or something. 50 we play from a certain tee, and if you can break 50. And it got tremendous ratings. It was sort of like a crazy thing. He's a great guy.
But wasn't that like a couple of days after you got shot?
I don't know. I know I haven't.
That was one of the funniest things. You were on the golf course.
I think I did, yeah, maybe I did. But I view it very interestingly. I'm running for president of the United States. To me, it's such a big deal. It's so important. So
it's the biggest deal in the free world.
It's 100 times bigger than the Super Bowl, and it's one person.
Yeah.
So you're down to 2 people, and we start off at 9 billion, because you have 9 billion, they say, in the world. Who knows what that number is? But you get down to 350 million. Sadly, we have no idea what we have in this country, but let's assume it's 325, 350. And you're down to 2 people. It's the biggest thing in the world. And when I heard she took off yesterday and she took off the day before, and she's going to take off tomorrow or the next day, I haven't taken a day off in 56 days. That's a long time. I haven't taken one day off. I don't want to play golf. This is too exciting. Golf is great, but this is too exciting. This is more exciting than anything you can do. And
also, it's the home stretch.
It's the home stretch. Who would take a day off? So we have 11 days left now. And I think I've gone 55 days in a row. No days off. And I make speeches oftentimes, sometimes not, but I make speeches. And when you make a speech, and my speeches last a long time because of the weave, I weave stories into it. And if you just read a teleprompter, nobody's going to be very exciting. You got to weave it out. So but you always have to, as you say, you always have to get right back to it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's no good. But the weave is very, very important. Very few weavers around, but it's a big strain on your. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to be careful with the voice. You can lose that voice. The voice wasn't designed. I said today, so I made a big one last night. I was in Las Vegas. Got a big one the night before in Arizona. Big one. I mean, they're all big. There's never been anything like it in terms of crowd. Never been close. Never been close. They say, he talks about crowds. It's very interesting. So we get crowds that are really big. They say, I've never had a story, because I don't get good press. I don't think I've had a good story in years. I really don't. I swear, I don't think you were talking about it a little bit with Oprah. Everybody loved me. I don't think, I became president of the United States, I did great the second time. I did much better. I don't want to get you in any disputes, but I won that second election so easy, and not just because.
But let me get to that. I want to talk to you about that. But
here's the thing: I did that, and now I've gotten the nomination again. And don't forget, to get these nominations, you go against very smart people. Ron DeSantis was hot; had to go through him. Nikki Haley was hot; had to go through her. I went through everybody. Record time, right? Record time. I got 3 nominations in a row. Won the first time, did much better the second time. You know, I get millions of votes more the second time, and now I'm doing it a third time. And it's an incredible thing. I never get a good story. I only get bad press. Now, I will say this. It's a lot easier if you're a Democrat. If I were a Democrat,
you get a lot of positive press.
I would get a lot of positive press.
No, it's a creepy, corrupt business, and the media, to a large extent, acts as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party.
It's not even believable.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch, and most young people, I think, are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's getting younger.
Yes.
Let me tell you, it's getting for us. For a conservative.
Yes.
And I consider myself a person.
It's the internet. It's because the internet's giving people information that they're not getting from anywhere else. And they get like the Very Fine People hoax, the Russiagate hoax, all these different things that they've done, they tried to pin on you. That's like, it's a clear distortion of what you actually said.
The bloodbath hoax.
Yeah.
I was talking about the auto industry.
Yes.
It's a bloodbath because Japan and China are taking our auto. And I said, it's a bloodbath. They said, he used the word bloodbath.
He said, if you don't win, it's going to be a bloodbath because they're going to take over. That's exactly what you said.
It's a terrible thing they do.
But that's the problem with propagandists, because they take things out of context, and ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility because people don't want to listen to them anymore because they see that they've done that and they recognize what's going on and they feel insulted. Their intelligence is getting insulted.
Well, look at the ratings.
Yes.
You know, shows like yours. So I have a son who's very smart and tall, Barron, right? And he knows all about you. He knows about guys I never heard of. I said, Dad, you don't know how big they are. They're big. You know, he told me how big. I said, who the hell is he? Like Ross. He said, Dad, he's a great guy. I mean, guys that are doing... It's a whole new world out there.
It's a different world. And
but, I'm on TikTok now.
Congratulations.
And I've done really well. No, but you know the crazy... Have you seen the numbers? Billions of hits. It's crazy.
I'm sure. TikTok's a wild application.
And I've gone up 30 points. A Republican is always down 30 with young people. I'm plus 30. And I'm on TikTok.
I think
it's had a huge impact.
Young people are rejecting a lot of this woke bullshit. Young people are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill telling them what the moral standards of society should be today. And people are upset.
There's a big difference now, but even in just a couple of years, I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system, you're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Sure, they come after their political opponent.
Well,
I got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because his political opponent stuff. And I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win, but you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put Crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it today. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they said, that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's what you're doing.
That's what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him to them if you win? The presidency has tremendous power. I could have put Crooked Hillary.
I respected that you didn't, because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I can't. I couldn't even imagine. You have first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it, I never said it. They say, lock her up, lock her up. And I'd always go, take it easy, just relax, we're going to win this thing, take it easy, take it easy. And I'm telling you, I kept it down, just the opposite. Now they say, oh, Trump wanted to put her in jail. No, I say, going to jail. They had more stuff on her. And Comey had it, because when Comey got up, and he stupidly, because he's a stupid guy too, he's a stupid son of a bitch. He got up, Joe, he got up, and instead of saying she's innocent of all charges, he went over each charge, and each charge was a killer. And he goes, and as far as her doing this, she's innocent. And this, and then she said, only an unfair prosecutor would go. But every time you heard these charges, they sounded so bad. They were bad. And all it was is he wanted more airtime. If he would have gone up and said, I've thoroughly investigated Hillary Clinton and she's done nothing that we feel is wrong, it would have ended. Instead, he wanted to be up there because he's a PR hound. He's a hog. And he starts going through and you know what he had? They had a huge problem because FBI is great. The people there, not the top people, the people. The real people, the people that work there. It's like the real generals that I told you about that defeated ISIS and records. The FBI guys are great. I'll bet you I'd be at 95% in the FBI.
I bet that's right.
Underneath.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. So he goes with Hillary, and instead of just saying, he goes through each charge.
Right.
And even I was saying, man, those are bad charges.
Sounds terrible because
this is before I got
with those charges.
Don't forget, this is before I got there.
Right.
Now, he was trying to protect her. But he did her a great disservice.
Because he wanted attention.
He was stupid.
So I want to talk about 2020 because you said over and over again that you were robbed in 2020.
Yeah, totally.
How do you think you were robbed? Everybody always cuts you off. I'm going to allow.
Well, they not only cut you off. Well, what I'd rather do is we'll do it another time, and I would bring in papers that you would not believe. So many different papers. That election was so crooked. It was the most crooked election.
Okay, but give me some examples of how.
Well, let's start on the top and the easy ones.
Okay.
They were supposed to get legislative approval to do the things they did, and they didn't get it. In many cases, they didn't get it.
What things?
Anything.
Legislative approval
like for extensions of the voting, for voting earlier, for this, for all different things. By law, they had to get legislative approvals. You don't have to go any further than that. If you take a look at Wisconsin, they virtually admitted that the election was rigged, robbed, and stolen. They wouldn't give access in certain areas to the ballots because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present this ever? Like, do you think like?
Let me just give you one more before. 51 intelligence agents come up that the laptop was from Russia. It turned out to be totally false.
51 former intelligence agents, right?
They say that made. I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't matter. I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe. They say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over that's spread over this period. So 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop. They said it was created by Russia. Russia. It was the Russia hoax. The Russia hoax was a big hoax. It was all a big hoax. So,
well, that's one example. That is a good example.
That's a big example. They say it made a 17-point difference. That's a big example. But that's only one. And you could go into the ballots. You could go into the ballot harvesting. You could go into $500 million for the lock boxes.
But just in terms of narrative, so there's two things, right? There's the Russia hoax. There's the collusion with Russia that was never proven, right? That's one.
Well, no, it was proven it didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But they talked about it on
but
television.
But it took 2.5 years to prove.
But not only that, but it was a constant narrative on television.
Sure.
So that's a constant narrative that gets into people's minds, especially low information people that just watch the news, that you're in collusion with Russia. So that's one.
Sure.
So that changes the narrative. And then you have the 51 former intelligence agents that work with the original Twitter and get them to remove links. You can't share it on DMs. You cannot share that story. They swept that story because they said it was Russian disinformation, even though they knew it was not.
100%.
So that's two examples that are real examples. Now, anyone who considers himself a legitimate, objective observer of American politics, if you really want the best person to win, you would want people to not lie. And the only reason why they got away with this lie was because they continually labeled you as this horrible threat to democracy and Hitler. They kept saying you're going to be a dictator, ignoring the fact that you weren't a dictator for the 4 years where you were actually the president.
I was actually the opposite of a dictator. I was a very straight guy. But look, those three things, you take those three things, each one of them by themselves causes the result of a dictator.
It does.
And then you can go into 100 other things. There's so many. We can't have corrupt elections, and we can't have open borders. You need to have a country. You need borders. You need elections. And I'll tell you the other thing you need is you need a free and fair press. One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human being. I will try to have a conversation with her.
If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I'd just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on. Trying to get her to express herself just as I don't think these formats are good. I don't think that two people, first of all, I hate the idea of the presidential debates because I hate the idea of a time limitation on complex ideas. Also, you have to break.
I think you have to have the debates still.
Right, but the way they do the debates, I think, is the wrong way to do it. I think they should have a conversation. I think you and Kamala, you sit across the table with no one in the room but the two of you. Of course you're not going to shout each other. Of course you're not going to insult each other.
I mean, it may get... They used to do it that way.
It wouldn't, but that would be the way to do it.
They used to do it that way in the old days.
To put cameras on you with no one interfering with with checking whether or not it's factual, especially when it's biased, because they checked you all those times and they didn't check her with clearly things that were inaccurate, right? So have two people just have a conversation with each other without a time constraint. And also this idea they cut off the microphone.
Well, and no crowd.
No crowd. Crazy too, because you're good at working crowds.
I would rather have a crowd.
Of course you would. You're good at crowds.
But I had no. So they gave me an alternative. I don't think he won the debate.
Why did they want no crowd? What was the argument?
I think they thought I wasn't going to accept it. So I believe what they wanted to do is have me not accept. So they gave me a deal I couldn't refuse. And I said, I'll do it, okay? It's like the mob.
Right.
I'll take it. So they came to me, they said, we'll debate Joe Biden. You know, that thing got tremendous ratings, too. That was crazy. But we'll debate Joe Biden, but you can't have a crowd. They also wanted sitting down. I said, that's the only thing. I said, look, you gotta stand up. You can't really sit down.
Right.
You know, in the old days, they did sit down a little bit, but
he gets tired.
You gotta stand up. And they agreed to it. It was a very tough thing. It almost killed it. They wanted to have like desks. We said. I said, I think we should stand up. And that was the only thing I asked for. I said, we got to stand up. I thought it looked bad for like the public, but they said no crowd and cut off the mic. And I said, I can live with it. I mean, I can live with it. And they thought I was going to reject it. And then they would say he didn't want to debate Sleepy Joe.
Right.
That's what they thought was going to happen.
Well, they tried to say that with you and Kamala as well. They tried to say that you didn't want to debate her as well.
No, but by the way, with her, number one, I'm leading. Number two, they also said it with the primary. So I had like 10, 12 guys, right, in the primary. No stupid guys. I mean, they're governors and they're senators. They're not stupid people. Some are stupid, but not all of them. And all my guys said, you have to be in the debate. I said, why? I'm leading by 74 points. The closest guy to me, I'm like 60 points, 70 points higher. Why would I stand there like an idiot for 2 hours and let every one of them scream at me, I'm going to be the focus? What?
Right.
And I said, I'm not debating. And it was a very smart thing because, you know, it was, they just killed themselves.
The Republican primaries.
Yeah, the Republican primaries. I like debating. I think you have to debate. But I like
it has to be fair.
I like debating like the Rosie O'Donnell debate. I like debating when you have a great. Remember the Rosie O'Donnell?
Yeah, that was very funny. Megan,
crazy thing, Megan. That was a hell of a question, man. If I didn't come up with that answer,
it was a great line.
Well, what it was is, you know, we had 28,000 people. That was the Cleveland Arena where the Cavaliers played.
Right.
LeBron James. I'm not a big fan of LeBron James, but he is a good basketball player. But you know, that was and when I said that, the place went crazy. And she kept talking. No, she had like 10 other.
Yeah, well, Megan said you said it to other people and you admitted you did. But it was funny. It was a comedic timing moment.
It was fine.
That's what they wanted to avoid.
It was lucky I did it because she was drowned. Oh, she wasn't finished. That question, but she kept talking, but you couldn't hear her. To this day, they don't know what she said, but it wasn't positive. So anyway, but we had a good time.
Well, it's comedic timing, and that's the reason why to have a debate in front of a large audience. And then they probably thought you would.
How did I do with the Al Smith dinner? I got very good reviews on that.
That was great. It was very funny. Very funny stuff. The Tim Walz stuff is very funny.
Tim Walz, yeah.
He's funny.
That's a real beauty.
That's a crazy one. She said that she had picked him, and this is one of the questions I want to ask her, when she was sleep deprived. She said she was suffering from sleep deprivation when she picked him, which is just like... Hey, maybe take a nap.
So okay, look, let's see how it all turns out. I think we're going to win. I think we're way ahead now. I think we're way ahead. But
can I bring you back to 2020?
I think they're going to look at two things. They're going to say they should have had a primary, even if it was a short primary.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have picked her. And then she's going to say, I shouldn't have picked this guy.
She shouldn't have picked that guy.
That guy's
just the lying about Tiananmen Square.
Everything.
Admitting that, the military record, assistant coach versus head coach.
Too.
Yeah.
Little things. So I did McDonald's last week.
I saw that.
And I actually got a call from your friends at Google, from Sundar. That's pretty good, right? He said, this is the biggest thing we've had in years.
You at McDonald's?
At McDonald's. Did you know that? It was one of the...
It was funny.
Who's a great guy, by the way. But he said, this McDonald's thing, I want to tell you, it's one of the biggest things we've ever had on Google. It just hit. But the reason I did it, and I actually, you never know about this stuff. I thought it was a throwaway. Mm-hmm. I didn't think our conversation was a throwaway, but I thought I'd walk in, and that was only to highlight the fact. And I have a friend, he owns like 56 of these McDonald's, and he said, you want to use one? I said, yeah, I love it. So we went there, and the crowd was crazy. You know, they had 28,000 people around the whole thing. Did you see the outside? It was crazy. The cars couldn't get through. The Secret Service was not exactly thrilled. We had no idea what the hell. But I went into the place, and I did the French fry thing. And it just hit. But that's like in life. Sometimes you do. I thought it was like a quick throwaway. We're going to be there for 15 minutes. Then I said, I've worked here for 15 minutes, which is 15 minutes more than she worked here. She lied about McDonald's. And you know,
is that proven that she never worked at McDonald's?
Well, McDonald's has no information. No, she has no information. There's nobody. The manager said she never worked there. You know, it was a certain place, and he said they never. No, she lied. She's a liar. You know what they do? They'll say, like, on any one of their questions, they'll say, it's the exact opposite of what I say. IVF. He's against IVF, fertilization.
Right.
And it's the exact opposite. I came out immediately strongly in favor. And they do ads. I'm against it. It's wrong. On every single topic. And, you know, she changed policies on 15. I've never seen anybody change on more than one. You know, you can maybe get away with one. Her whole life, fracking, every single thing that she was for, the confiscation of guns, she wants to confiscate. Now she's saying everybody should have a gun. In fact, we're going to get her a MAGA cap. I'm going to send her a MAGA cap. But she's changed, and I don't think people are buying it. I don't think people are buying it.
Well, some people are buying it because they want to buy it, because it's blue no matter who. There's a certain percentage of our population that's going to vote Democrat no matter what.
That's true.
They're pressured. There's their community, their ideology. It's left is good, right is evil.
I don't understand why. Okay, you have a wall, or you have I built 570 miles of wall. Everyone said I built a lot of wall, exactly the stuff. But you have a border. What I don't understand is, who would want people to come into our country from places unknown, like sometimes they say about a fighter, from parts unknown, right? Remember Haystacks Calhoun, front parts. He's front parts are the oldest. Those are the oldest. That's even before you. But who would want people to come in pouring into our country? We don't know anything about it.
But I want to ask you this. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think because...
Do you think they're trying to buy votes? Do you think they just want cheap labor? Like, what's the idea?
There's a couple of theories. They hate our country, they're stupid, or they want to buy votes. It's one of those three things.
Yeah.
They want it. Now, they are trying to get people registered who, don't even know what the country is.
And they're trying to give people amnesty, people that live here. They're trying to give them a path
They want to give them citizenship, or they want to... Well, how about what happened?
If you think about the amount of money that they've given them when they've come here, the food stamps, the benefits that even our poor people aren't getting.
$200 billion, and that's a way low number. That's a way low. It's interesting. New York has always been like, sort of like always looking for money. They've spent $100 billion on this stuff. I don't know where and they're not getting the money from the federal government. It's crazy. And because the mayor came out and said, we can't live like this.
They investigated him.
He gets by the way, I called it. I said, he just got himself indicted. This group is stupid, but they're vicious. They're stupid people, but they're vicious people.
The 2020 elections, you say you have all this evidence that it was rigged. Why haven't you put this evidence in a consumable form? In what?
Oh, I did. I have books on it. And by the way, books have been written on it. We have an author named Hemingway, who is a great writer. She wrote a book on it, but many books have been written on it. There are books that are... What's happened is judges don't want to touch it. They would say you don't have standing. They didn't rule on the merits. They ruled... The merits never got there. The judges didn't have what it took to turn over an election.
Let's talk about the potential vulnerabilities for elections and election fraud. One of them is mail-in ballots. The other one is if someone can break into voting machines. If someone can hack voting machines. Those are two huge ones.
So Elon Musk, I think he said it publicly. I hope he did, because I wouldn't want to be the one. But he's a really smart guy. And he's a very good guy with computers, right? You'd say he's
one of the smartest people alive.
Anybody that can land that 20-story building and perfect and boom.
While he's doing Starlink, while he's talking Tesla, to me while he owns Twitter.
And then he agrees to Starlink.
And he tweets 100 times a day.
He's an amazing guy. Right?
Yeah.
He said to me that unless you have paper ballots, it can never be an honest election. That's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
We should go to paper ballots. France did. They went to mail-in voting, and it was all messed up.
What can be done?
Amazing thing with the machines? So we have the machines. They cost 10 times more. Paper ballot would cost 8%. And they make paper ballots, they're all watermarked and everything else. They're very sophisticated. But if you take a look, paper ballots, 8% the cost, and you're done by 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Now we have these sophisticated machine. It goes up to heaven. It goes all over the place and down and around. And they say, we'll need 2 weeks to figure out who the hell won the election.
Do you think that's by design?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very quick. That's my opinion.
You're allowed to have an opinion. Let's say you win in November. What can be done to mitigate these problems? What could be done at the level that the president has power?
Well, if I win, this will be my last election. But I think I owe it to the country. Yeah. But I think I owe it to the country. We have to have elections.
So how can you fix that?
Jimmy Carter was in charge of a commission, that many years ago. And they put him and Scoop Jackson and various senators, distinguished people that were retired. And they came up with a report. And the report's primary finding was you cannot have mail-in ballots. Because if it's a mail-in ballot, I went to the voting booth the last time, whatever it was, and I walked in Palm Beach, and I walk in, and they know me. They say, Mr. President, could I see your identification? Yes, boom, here's this, here's that, everything. And then you sit and you watch your sign, and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot.
Right.
It has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left. And it's so bad. the one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong commission. It was no mail-in ballots. And we're the only one that does elections this way anymore. They've gotten away from it.
And this is it ticked up in a big way after COVID. It used to be like soldiers serving overseas.
They used COVID to cheat.
Yeah, well, they used COVID to certainly push this mail-in ballot. Another thing
but they used COVID to cheat.
But here's another.
And the last election was a little bit of a. You couldn't even get security guys, big, strong guys to watch. You know what? You'd call them. They'd call them, and they were afraid to go out. You know, we were in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. We were in the middle of COVID, right smack in the middle, and they didn't want to die. You know, they didn't want to catch it. It was like, in a way, it was like a ghost town, and the whole thing. But mail-in ballots are a bad thing.
That certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots are a problem.
But every
Another
other country,
problem is voter ID.
Yeah, a voter ID.
Voter ID is the most bizarre argument that I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you don't need voter. Well, it doesn't make sense any other way. I've tried to straw man it, or I've tried to steel man it rather. I've tried to look at it from a position like, why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are just ridiculous. You need an ID to get a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the world, and I used to get along, but I don't get along with him now because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom, the other day, signed a bill that you are not allowed to ask a person, even ask them whether or not they have voter ID.
Now, what could be a charitable reason why anybody would want that? But that would be the only thing that makes sense.
But that's taking it to the next level.
Right.
Now, you have ID. The Democrat National Convention, when they had it the last time, I saw, they had a sign, like a billboard, on the name of the person, where they live, how they live, who the hell their boyfriends are, every single. And a big picture, that's for they have an ID, a big ID. It was hanging like you were a prisoner. They had these massive cards, everything. And yet when it comes to the vote, in theory, the most important thing we do, okay? When you go to a grocery store, you give ID. But for a vote, it's supposed to be a sacred thing, and it should be a sacred thing. No voter ID, because they want to cheat.
Well, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I've tried to look at it.
There's no other way.
There's no argument that anybody's presented that makes any sense. Why?
You know the funny thing, Joe? The Democrats, the people, they all think you should have it. In other words, you should have it.
Yeah.
If you go to the people, Mrs. Schwartz, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Sure.
They say, of course, yeah. Democrats, they say yes. It's the politicians that don't want it, like Schumer and these guys, they don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. Because you know what? If they didn't have it, okay, who is going to vote for somebody that wants open borders? Who's going to vote for somebody that wants to have...
¿Qué acaba de pasar?
You know, I have never had one person come up to me and say, President, you got to do something to allow men to play in women's sports. Have you ever? Just like I've never been called by a pollster. I told you my little theory on pollsters, okay? I'm getting myself in trouble with some of these things, but I don't really care. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to have men playing women's sports. And, I had a funny thing. At a property I own in California, I have a woman who's a very good athlete, and she works there as a manager. And Brian Urlacher, the big Chicago Bears, great player, 10-time All-Star, I guess, Hall of Famer, great guy, big, strong guy. And she said, he's one of my favorite athletes. Can I have a picture? And I took a picture and I sent her. And I noticed she was the size of his leg. His leg was bigger than she. They really don't have. They give away a lot of health care, a lot of stuff. But for the most part, their policies are terrible. Their policy on military. She's running on a tax hike. She's going to raise your taxes. You got to hear this. We are going to raise your taxes. And the people clap. But who is going to win? All my life, I grew up with politicians lower taxes. She's politicking that we are going to raise your taxes.
Well, they want to raise the idea is you want to raise the taxes to the highest earners.
I know, but
they
really
think that
doesn't work that way.
millionaires and billionaires are not paying their fair share.
But it doesn't work that way.
Well, it's a narrative. right? And it's a narrative that appeals to people that are not doing well.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, our problems are that these rich people are not paying taxes.
Well, the problems are the rich people are going to leave, and they're going to close up their companies, and then the other people aren't going to have jobs. That's what happens.
It does happen in other countries.
But the whole, because you brought it up, I'll tell you what, we just, he's doing a very good job in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin, I don't know if you like him, not like him.
I don't know him.
But you don't know the governor of Virginia? So we have a case where they found thousands of illegal ballots. A judge just ruled that they have to be able to vote. Just happened today. Just before I walked in here, I heard a judge just ruled that you have to keep those people in. They're illegal. They're illegal votes. Now, I think they'll be overturned at the next court. One thing I found, because I had a couple of things that they get overturned a little bit, the system, because the system, you have to hope that the appellate judges are honest. Otherwise, we don't have a country anymore. Very important. But the whole thing with illegal ballots has got to be looked at. You have to have voter ID, and you have to have additional ID. You have to have an ID that shows that you're a citizen of the country.
I agree.
They don't want that either.
I agree. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the JFK files. And one of the things that you said was that if they showed you what they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So I opened them up partially. I was met with, from good people, good people. People that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person. They called me, they said, sir, would rather have you not. And I did open them, but I was asked by some people not to open them. There's a Martin Luther King file, too, by the way, that they'd like to see. I don't know if you know, but there is that. But JFK in particular. So they called me, a lot of good people called me, people that that you would find reasonable people. And they asked me not to do it, so I said, well, we'll close it for another time. But if I win, I'm going to open them up. I'm just going to open enough time.
Why didn't you open it up the first time?
Because a lot of times,
what was the hesitation, though?
Addresses, people that are still living. There are people that are affected. And there could be some national security reason that I don't have to necessarily know about. But some very good, talented people asked me not to do it. I opened it up, and then they said, would it be possible for us to do that a different day?
How much of it did you read into? I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine. It's going to be time. It's a cleansing. It's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it immediately, almost immediately upon entering office. Well, the thing, when people look at it from the outside and you sort of imagine what could be a reason why they would not release those files, it would be there's people that were implicated in the assassination.
Yeah. Well, when there are living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living.
Living people that formerly worked for the government.
For the government, and living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a reasonable ask, but now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very soon. There's a lot of interest in it.
One of the things that
there's a lot of interest in the people coming from space,
Yes.
And I know you're interested in that.
Oh, very interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they tell you? How much can you tell?
So how's
that work? Is it like super top secret?
I can tell,
Tell me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I want, right? But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51, let's say. Do you know that, right?
Sure, I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as
I've had a couple in here. Commander David Fravor. I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very compelling with video evidence, radar evidence. Ryan Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, you know. And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
No, a little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, you know, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, you know, because...
Well, Mars, we've had probes there and rovers, and I don't think there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know, but
maybe there was life there at one point in time. This is the speculation about Mars, that Mars had an atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support life. It also had large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars. But the universe is pretty vast.
It's not been a big thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up, and a lot of people thought for a little while that was you know, one of these things. So,
well, that's a lot of the speculation too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones, and that they're not UFOs.
They could be also.
There's some super sophisticated.
But I did interview, let's say 3 or 4 guys that, and without tremendous interest, if you had them, as I said, you'd love to have them as your children. Solid, beautiful people. They said, sir, there's something there. You know,
there's something there. Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of them.
They're not conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second. They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah, they saw something in the water. It was hovering over that something that was making a disturbance in the water. They got video evidence of this thing. 2 different fighter jets with pilots in them saw it. There's, you know, visual evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, radar evidence. Whatever the hell it is, it moves in a way that would turn a human being into jello if you're inside of it. The G-force, no one would survive. It's like, what is that? And it doesn't have a heat signature. They don't know what their propulsion system was. But
when you fly in some of these jets, these pilots have to be in great shape.
Oh, yeah. I flew with the Blue Angels once.
Yeah.
I got to fly. I guess it's an F/A-18.
And those are older machines.
And they're crazy.
When you fly in some of these things,
oh, my God.
Amazing. Yeah, but
I can imagine.
You got to be special.
But these things that these people are encountering are far superior to what we know of.
Yeah.
Is it possible that there's some military or government program that you weren't, that they didn't tell you about?
I think I had a great relationship with the military, basically, but I didn't like certain people. I would have gotten them out if I thought, if the election was different, I would have fired, all of them quickly. Most of them I did fire. Biden should have fired every military person involved with Afghanistan. He should have had a lot of firings. If you look at him, he told Israel not to do anything, and at least Israel's not going to look at a bomb the way they would have been. Think if they listened to Biden. They'd be waiting for a bomb to drop on their head right now. He's been wrong about so much. I guess you'd have to say that she's been wrong too, because she always said they made the decision together. But Israel didn't follow his advice, and I think it was a very, it's a very changing. There are prophets that say the world will come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right? And we have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons. And we have other weapons too that are devastating. But the nuclear weapons, the biggest threat we have in the world today, and that's what I was talking about de-escalation with both China and Russia. I'm telling you, we were going to de-escalate. They were going to de-escalate. Got to be careful. It's a little tricky playing with them because they say we're going to do it and they don't do it, maybe. But they understood the curse, too. It's a curse. China's way behind us, but they'll catch us within 5 years.
So let's imagine, let's say you win in November. What do you do differently, and how do you change this course that it seems we are on for World War III? How do you get us out of Ukraine? How do you stop what's going on in the Middle East? How do you put a stop to this?
Well, it's a very, to me, it's an easy question because I think I can do it easily, but it's a complex question in the sense that the times change, every day changes. Who's winning, who's not winning? I mean, Russia's a war machine. Whether you like it or not, it just grinds along. You speak to people like Viktor Orban, he'll tell you it's just a big, fat war machine, and that's what's happening. You look at what's happened to Ukraine. If I were there, it would have never happened.
But what could you do now? If you get into office in January, what could you do now?
Right now, you would get both of them. I know both very well. And again, I do not want to tell you what, for the purpose of looking smart to five people that say, oh, he was great. Because if I told you exactly what I do, I could never make the deal. All I can tell you is that I would meet with Putin and I would meet with him, and I know exactly what I'd say to each one of them. And I believe that as president-elect, I would get that war stopped, and stopped fast. We have tremendous power in the United States.